Well, good evening, all you BB gamers. This is your host Byron. I'm your BB gamer right here, and here is my twin brother Brian, Ventus of the Wind. Here again for another little episode of the Right Gamer Opinion. So, what's is there any other gaming news or whatever it is that you have for us?
It's more so of the comic book industry, in which I learned from Yellow Flash today when I watched his
YouTube video, right?
his video that came out. So, like, from what I heard is that the comic book industry is kind of going on a very steep decline, and it's all because of the woke bullshit that's been going on for a couple of, I think it was like a few years.
Yeah, from what I heard is that ever since the whole COVID started, the comic book industry has been taking a big hit, and since MCU and the Marvel and the universe, the what other
MCU, it's Marvel, the
DC.
MCU and DC versus have been going on the decline because of all this
politics and
woke politics, feminism, all of this other stuff. LGBTQ is also another big factor because, like, they made Superman son gay.
yeah,
And
I just don't know.
It's not. I mean, I have no problems with LGBTQ people, those people, but keep that shit out of
Comics.
the comics or everything else because people
It doesn't.
it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah, and not to mention, it doesn't make sense. How
Yeah.
in the world did this Superman's son end up finding out that he was gay?
He was getting into certain relationships, like how normality people are.
Oh, it's
You
not
go
like
to
you could.
experiment. You go out and experiment, and then you unfortunately find out that you're attracted to certain people or certain kinds of people. Like I'm straight. I want to get to with girls mostly, but some people have this clicking feeling that allows them to say,
It's
"Oh,
not.
I'm not into girls. I'm more into guys.
Yeah,
So I should probably stick with them because they're much more attractive."
and just for your information, we don't mind anything.
We're not racist. We're not homophobes. We're not sexualizing people. We're just giving our opinions on the matter. And I have to say is that all of the stuff that's been going on in the comic book industry, because of all this woke bullshit, it's causing the comic book industry to decline so fast. And from the one comment that I saw in Yellow Flash's video,
shout out to him.
yes, he brought up a new comic book called The Wondrous Robin, I think.
Uh-oh.
Yes, and unfortunately, this one details Tim Drake coming back as Robin, but it's more so like 40 pages of his life, hooking up with a guy and all this other stuff, and only like about a few pages of action, and it's really not something that anybody should be seeing. I mean, in the old comics, you
There
had
are
all
a
of
lot of
the
action,
a lot
adventure.
of, yeah, a lot of action. There's a lot of hits and all that, but people just don't like the violence anymore. They want more of this. Oh, if he was like this, then he can relate to me. I don't buy that. I don't buy that kind of stuff because why should we buy stuff that's pertaining to somebody else's life when it's supposed to be all fantasy and action packed?
I
People
mean,
just don't get it in their minds that it's a comic.
I
You're
mean,
not supposed to bring real life stuff
stuff into fantasy worlds.
yeah, made up things. I mean, some of these places are like resemble like New York or San Francisco or Colorado or any of these
But it's
other
all
places.
futuristic. It's all futuristic. All make believe. It's all just fantasy right now. It's I just don't understand that these people just play around with these comics that have been a derogative from just way back when comics were first introduced, where they start just kind of like introductions for the person, and then their action lives of fighting crime and taking down evil villains. But this is just ridiculous. Seeing that the comics are just depicting lives and the sexualizations of the characters, that's not what you're supposed to do.
The thing is that it's more so of the artists trying to input their sexuality into the characters, in which they shouldn't really be doing. Superman is supposed to be a straight person who fights crime whenever he can. He should be already hooked up with Lois Lane. Everybody knows that. But we don't need to have his son to be gay and open-minded to fighting against the racist people or the LGBTQ rallying up and him joining in.
He's Superman's son. He's Superboy. He should follow just like in his father's footsteps, fighting against evil villains and other super villains out there.
From what I know from the comic book, his father's somewhere else, and he's supposed to be the Superman of Earth right now. But I mean,
that's kind of not happening.
Yeah, it's not really happening, and nobody's really buying that bullshit comic.
And it's happening to other comics too. Unfortunately, well, just to let you know, I also buy comics, but mostly within the IDW range, like Sonic the
Hedgehog comics. So
that's my favorite one, honestly. I just love that Uber. I've gotten almost every single issue and never failed to get one. But I know I can understand that the whole comic book industry is starting to take a plunge, and even other companies are
it's starting to affect
it.
all the other comics too, because not only is that IDW is also failing in its sales, they are also taking a huge amount of money that they're hemorrhaging, and it won't be long until IDW sinks too.
Yep.
But I mean, hopefully it doesn't, because I know that you want to keep collecting those Sonic comics, but
I do. I mean, ever since Archie ended up stupidly canceling because of one guy by the name of Ken Penders.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah.
So
we'll probably talk about that late in another episode. But thanks to him, Archie Sonic is no more, and we got IDW, which is fairly good. I like the comics. I've been collecting them, and I'm already over 50 issues. That's one of my best highlights, getting 50 issues of the Sonic comic. But I have my brother to thank for getting me back into the issues.
If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be into the comics. But that aside,
yeah,
comics right now are on a steep decline because of these woke politics and all this other bullshit that they tossed in, and it's mostly their fault. They have the ability to just go back to do what they should do, but they're sticking onto this narrative. And basically, that's about all I have to say about that. Comic books are going to die soon, and it's going to be their fault.
It's a downward spiral for that, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Well, on that downside turn note, over and done with. We got a little review here for a certain game that just recently got an update, and it's Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak.
For those of you who don't know, Monster Hunter Rise came out, I believe, last year, right?
Yeah, it came out last year, and it had a bunch of updates.
Basically, it was just basically called Monster Hunter Rise until they had this huge update like they did with Monster Hunter World, and it was called Monster Hunter World Iceborne. But now this one is called Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. So basically, if you guys are a fan of Monster Hunter, then you should know that basically this game is just all about hunting monsters and getting their parts and building up an arsenal and armor for you to rise up and hunt bigger monsters.
Indeed. I mean, I never actually tried a Monster Hunter game other than Monster Hunter Ultimate for the Switch that came out many years ago. And all I could say is it was basically thanks to my brother here again that got me invested in all the Monster Hunter games coming forward. So basically put, if it weren't for my brother, I wouldn't be a Monster Hunter fan just like any other else. But there is another thing that I like to point out is that there's two YouTubers that we really enjoy watching them do some funny stuff, Monster Hunter games, and I like to give another shout out to Rage Gaming.
Yes, Rage Gaming is actually one of the first channels that actually caught my attention, and then of course I showed to my brother about it, and eventually we got hooked.
Indeed.
But I mean, for me personally, I was the first one who started doing the monster hunting myself on the 3DS, and I believe that was Monster Hunter 3, I believe?
I think it was 4.
4.
It was
Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, I believe.
Yes.
That's what it was called.
And then you got me hooked into it too. So
Pretty
and we did hunts together. So yeah, I mean, all I could say is that it's almost in a similar fashion, just like Monster Hunter World, but there are like certain mechanics that are differentiate from this one than Monster Hunter World.
Pretty much. I mean, this one introduces the wire bug, which allows you to sling yourself all over the place and allow you to mobily get up to certain areas quite faster. So, and not only that, you also have
Your Palicos and the new Palamute that was introduced in Rise. Basically put, you could just ride on it just like how you did in Monster Hunter World when you had those other monsters that you could ride.
yeah, basically they got the idea off of that, but more so now you have a Palamute in order to ride on and take with you.
Indeed, I mean it's quite a fun take from getting the mechanics from World implemented into Rise, Sunbreak. I mean, the visuals are impressive even for the Switch version. I mean, sure, it may be a little bit more downgraded from the World, which kind of had people divided.
They were a little bit upset because the graphics for World was much more better than Rise, even though that Rise is getting more popular. But
Yeah, I mean,
it's still a Monster Hunter game. I don't see any problems with that.
yeah, and we can look forward to whatever more recent updates that they're including. But just as I said before, a new update has just recently started where there's Flaming Espinas, Violet Mizutsune, and Risen Chameleons.
But basically, let's get back to the review of the game.
Right.
The game itself, basically, as I said, it's just about hunting monsters, but there is a story within Monster Hunter Rise, as per take with Monster Hunter World, in which I think that one had a story as well.
Yeah, I mean, the story is pretty decent. I mean, you go around from the start from Rise. You start as a beginning hunter from Komura Village, and then you start hunting monsters. Then there's this certain rampage that's going about, and it's up to you to resolve all that. We won't
The
spoil
rampage mechanic in that one is basically like a
tower defense. Basically, you defend certain areas from monsters that are trying to go into Komura and try to drive away the apex monsters. It's basic tower defense where you have to stop monsters from coming in.
And then, of course, at the end of Rise, you face against the big bad monster at the end, but that's not the complete end of the story when they added Sunbreak, which is the game that I'm showing off right now. Sunbreak continues on from when you defeated the boss monster in Rise, and then you get shipped over to
Elgato.
Elgato, yes. And it's here that you continue the story and fight off new monsters while going into the master rank, I think, right?
Yeah, master rank, and from there you continue on the story, facing off different monsters, then facing off against
The three.
the three lords, which are the main bads of the bad monsters of the game. We won't, like we said, we won't spoil anything, but the ending is pretty impressive.
You probably guys will have to play for yourself and get a lowdown of what kind of monsters you'll be facing. But in any case, they're still adding more stuff to the game. Like the last the update that they had was
Lucid Margukuga and the
silver and gold
Rathalos and Rathian.
Yes.
I mean, they're seriously coming up with a lot more monsters for this game. So this game maybe getting up to speed with other games too. I mean, it's a big package for just one game.
Pretty much. And with all the mechanics and the weapons and the armors, you will have to think of how you guys are going to be able to deal with the monsters themselves and how you're going to
make a certain type of weapon, armor, and not to mention decorations to implement in it. Because if you combine different weapons and armors, you could become a very powerful hunter. But if you don't like the mix mash of different types of armors on your hunter, you can always use layered armor to get the good look that you are.
pretty much. I mean, I have a layered armor on myself, so if you want to make sure that you are sticking with like certain armor pieces and don't want to be shown with the armor itself, you just slap on layered armor and then you'll be just as cool as you look. And now, for the most part, everything within Rise was a great, fun time. We still play it on occasion because we have to wait for these updates to come and get us hooked up back into the game. We usually come in and do some hunts with some friends from another YouTube channel, Zoran, I believe.
Yeah, Zoran. He's also another avid hunter that we usually end up helping out. I mean, I think he's a very awesome hunter to be partnered up with. So I give a good shout out to Zoran.
Yes. Now, for the rating for Monster Hunter Rise, I would give it a 8.5 because I mean, of course, the graphics are kind of a little low quality from how Monster Hunter World is and how easy it is to actually beat some of the monsters, but the difficulty jump from Rise to Sunbreak has actually gotten better because if I was to give Rise itself its own grade, I would put it at 7. But with all of the additional stuff, the Sunbreak and all these other content added, it jumped up to 8.5 for me.
Okay, well, for me, I think Rise was a little bit more handholdy at times, but I'm not saying that it's a bad game. But I think it was a little bit more easier and manageable to do. It's a good game for newcomers to start off with. So I personally would give Monster Hunter Rise like a good solid 8. However, with this update with the Rise, the Sunbreak, I would definitely give it like a 9. I mean, a solid 9 because the story is good, the monsters are very, very, very tough, and it's only getting tougher with the current update that is currently happening right now.
And so, then, of course, they got more updates coming up, but we wanted to at least to give us our good, honest opinion about the game and the updates and all of the additional content that they added. And personally, that's what we want to say about giving this game a sort of good rating. But in any case, that's it from us here at our place. And we want to thank you guys for watching. Just make sure that you keep an eye out for more content from my brother's channel here. And we'll probably see you guys soon.
Yeah, be sure to also give a comment and like the video and subscribe if you can. because I like to continue on doing these videos for every gamer out there that enjoys any news or
News,
gaming.
entertainment, game reviews, or whatever, and let us know what you guys think we could do to at least make things a little bit more better, because our setup here is kind of
Meh.
meh. We're just barely starting doing
Yeah.
all of this, as we said, I think a couple of times, but we'll try getting there.
Yeah. So in any case, this is Byron, your BB Gamer.
And this is Ryan, Ventus of the Wind.
So we're signing off and see you guys during Friday.
Peace.